working. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi. It's a pleasure to be here for the laser series combining art, and technology, and science. It's like a dream come true for me. I'm a computer scientist by training. In the middle of my PhD, I started studying opera. And it took another 3 years before I discovered computational creativity, which is sort of their marriage. One way that technology and research and the arts get combined. And that completely changed my research direction. Had a really profound impact on me, and I hope that you guys will enjoy learning about it as well. So today I will introduce what computational creativity is. That's the purpose of the talk. So, briefly, it's the idea that computers are more than feature-rich tools, but instead are autonomous creators or co-creators in their own right. A really kind of simple, seemingly simple idea. So first let's talk about co-creativity. So too often we think about the computer as a tool, much like perhaps a really sophisticated hammer. Kind of an extension of that idea in a really big way. When I first heard the idea that a computer can be a legitimate collaborator, in much the same way as another person can be a collaborator, that completely changed my whole research direction. Almost instantly I had a whole bunch of ideas that I could never come up with without this conceptual shift. So that's one direction that computational creativity looks at. And another direction is to create autonomous artists. And again, the goal is to have a computer artist that's an artist in the full sense of the word, in the same way that a human would be an artist. And of course we're not there, but I think you might be surprised at how far we've gotten towards this goal. So one way that we, in computational creativity, try to gauge whether we're making progress is called the Turing test. It's not the only way, but it's one way. If you did hear about it, you probably heard about it in a slightly different context. So here, everybody found the room. Yay.
Sort of.
So the idea with the Turing test for computational creativity is that the Turing test succeeds if you can't tell whether a human made it or a computer made it. Okay? So I'm going to show you some artwork now. And you're going to tell me if you think it's human-made or computer-made. Because there is no better way to introduce computational creativity than by seeing some examples of what people actually create with computers. Now, when I say created by a computer, it's very important to point out, it doesn't mean that there's a person sitting there making it on Photoshop or anything similar to it. It's a computer making it, and the human only hits one button. Okay? So really a computer art, in a full sense of the word. Okay, so once I show you each picture, you tell me if it's made by a human or by a computer. Art history, background is a bit of a cheat. But if you have that background, all the better for you. All right, human or computer? Who says human? Who says computer? All right, we got consensus. Let's not skip anything. Human?
Yes.
Or computer? All right. Human? The longer I wait, the more hands go up. Or computer? We got kind of an even split here. This is fun. Human?
Computer.
Or computer? The question is, do you think this was made by a human or by a computer?
Yes, I know who did it. I know who did it.
You know, that would be cheating. All right, this is always great. So, human or computer? All right, so we had quite a few fairly even splits. And now, oh wait, there's one more. Sorry. Human or computer? Fabulous, pretty even relatively, and I believe that's my last one. Human? Okay. Wow, I could just sit here and wait and never really or computer. Fantastic. All right, now I'm going to give you the answers. Oh, okay. And I'm going to tell you how they were made. So this is created, just most of you correctly guessed that this is made by a computer. This is just, it's a system called Ackerman, made by Harold Cohen. It's what's called an expert system. So basically, Harold, he was a pioneer in the field, created the system which had one style. Okay? He encoded kind of one way of creating these artworks. And he did it back when the only way to do something like that was to have this like complicated robot with big robot arms, and it would pour the paints really carefully. Before this was relatively accessible to do. And this is, that's one of his works that I like quite a bit. Okay, so let's move on. This is made by a human. Yeah, so those of you familiar with art history would know that such perfect accuracy used to be a thing to aspire to. You see, creativity is a moving target. When I teach computational creativity, I like to discuss what is creativity. And before it was so easy to turn on a computer and get a perfect circle, there was value to that in the art world. Mimicking nature, creating these perfect squares and perfect circles was a worthwhile goal in various parts of art history. So right now, this looks too easy. Why would we care about this? A silly computer can do that. But back before that was the case, this was considered a valuable piece of art. Still is because of the history. All right, this is modern pop art. This is kind of, modern art, so made by contemporary artist Thomas C. Federer. It kind of looks like it could have been made by a computer, right? This is another example of Aaron's work. So eventually Harold Cohen gave his Aaron the ability to draw human shapes. Right? And intentionally made it so that it kind of looks like it was drawn by a human. There was a kind of a long history of development of, so originally Harold didn't have Aaron paint his own stuff, so it would draw it, but then Harold Cohen would go in and paint in the color. Eventually, Aaron learned how to color it as well. This is made by the Painting Full, which is less known in this part of the world. This is created by Simon Colton, and the goal there is to create a legitimate artist. How am I doing on time? Is this what remains? Yeah, that's what remains. Okay, I'm doing well. He tries to make a complete artist. So for example, at one point, the Painting Full was asked to create portraits. So you would go up to it, sit down, and have your portrait drawn by this computer artist. But it was moody. It could sort of explain why it paints you in a certain way that makes you look happy or sad, or makes the environment look happy or sad. And it could justify itself by saying, I read this thing in a newspaper and this made me sad. So that's why this painting looks sad. It would do that by randomly finding an article, but nevertheless. Once in a while, it would tell you that it doesn't want to paint you because it's too upset by what it's read. So it really tries to fill in these gaps between a human and a computer artist. Beautiful work. This is another example of exactitude being valued in the human art world. It's a painting by Theo van Duisburg. And this is another example of Aaron's work, which I think is really quite wonderful. A little bit of a later painting. And finally, Deep Dream. Some of you might have seen it. The deep learning Google Art. Any of you know how it works? One person knows. You want to share?
I don't know how much detail, but yeah, it's essentially it's derived from Google's AI system that actually looks for visual patterns in images. And so this is, like the way that humans look for faces or see trees, there's a pattern recognition capability that we have. Google has trained AI systems to also have that same pattern recognition capability. Okay. And if you set that free and have it iterate on itself over and over and over and over again, then all of a sudden it starts to hallucinate. And it's just like my ayahuasca adventures.
Yeah, well, that's right. So the one-line explanation here is reverse image recognition. So it knows what it wants to detect before it starts looking at the image. That's right. It definitely utilizes all of Google's beautiful image recognition technology, but it inverts it. You tell it what you're looking for, and then it finds it, whether it's there or not. Usually not. There's actually beautiful research connecting this to hallucinations, as was just pointed out to us. I met the person who studies this kind of work, actually not from Google. He did similar work independently. And he studies connections between this type of artwork and hallucinations. So that was fun. You never know what researchers do, right? Study hallucinations. All right, and you may not have known, but art created by computers has been displayed in galleries, especially in Europe. Created by computer in a strong sense that, for example, the painting fool creates art. So the idea of a computer artist is perhaps a little closer. Definitely closer than I was aware of a few years ago before I got into this field. All right, without further ado, since I only have 10 minutes left, let me tell you about music, a different art form, closer to my heart. As an opera singer, this means a lot to me. So, computational musicology. So the first piece I'll show you is again by one of the pioneers in this subfield of computational creativity, named David Cope, who works who's now a retired professor at UC Santa Cruz. And it's one of my favorite pieces of music generated by a computer. Again, an expert system. The early computational creativity systems are often expert systems. And in this case, David Cope encoded into Amy the rules that go into composing, in this case, Vivaldi-style music. And in many times it has passed the Turing tests. Only real expert in classical music can tell the difference between David Cope's work through Amy and real authentic music by these composers. So there's, for example, if you could just Google examples of Amy doing Bach and Beethoven, pretty much any very famous classical composer. They're beautiful, beautiful pieces of music that are technically original. So that's Amy. And now there's a completely different type of work that's more collaborative in nature. So earlier on in our talk, I pointed out that another goal of computational creativity is to have collaborators that are actually computers. And this is one of the funnest examples. This video is a little slow to get started, but we will make it work. There's nobody sitting at the other piano. There's a computer improvising in real time with a person. And like everything I've shown today, there's a whole research field around it. Much of it focusing on jazz music. There's actually a wonderful system by one of my colleagues called Impro-Visor that you can download from online. And it kind of gradually gets more and more complicated. Here I'll tell you about what I do. Usually I juggle about 12 research projects, so this is by far my favorite. Don't tell anybody, even though it's on video. Okay, so as a singer, I always struggled with coming up with melodies for words. As a musician, you really feel a need for original music. I can come up with lyrics, I can produce them, but I couldn't come up with melodies. And I tried, but being a computer science professor, you don't have a lot of time to develop many extra skills on top of being an opera singer and several other things. So it gets busy, but this was also kind of a hard nut for me to crack. For some reason, it wasn't coming easily to me. And then, this is a true story. The first time I heard of the idea of having the computer be a collaborator, almost instantly I thought, I want a computer to collaborate with me on coming up with melodies for lyrics that I give it. And over the past 2 years, more or less, a little bit less than 2 years, we've been working on it. And we're actually at a point now where we can share it with other people, which is super exciting. So if any of you want to try our system, you can let me know and I'll be happy to share it with you. And so you type lyrics, whatever you want, natural language, and it gives you back melodies to which you can sing these lyrics. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And one sentence at a time, so you still get to choose for each sentence and string them together. So the human still does a very meaningful role. I actually, I'm more fond of collaboration with AI than replacing humans, than creating, computer artists. So let me show you some of the stuff we've made. This particular song, I'll show you two things that we've done, which I have just enough time for. So this is Hope is a Thing with Feathers. It's an Emily Dickinson poem, which Joshua Palkey, who is a professor at CSU Long Beach, he used our system, Alicia, to compose melodies for this poem. And then I sang it. Usually I perform it live, but I figured we're short on time today. Used an Italian version of Alicia that we created for this project. And he was able to create this without even knowing how to read music, having never created a piece of music before. Okay? And this is a story, super fast, about the struggles of a tyrant in World of Warcraft who is struggling balancing raids with her family life. Alicia for themselves, just on the cusp of making it available. We should have it easily shareable within about a week. Yeah. All right, and
Cool.
more stuff on my website if you're curious.